Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
He scored a lot of power play goals. And you know how I feel about power play goals.
When it's easier to
Yes,
score.
exactly.
Right, not harder, easier.
Yeah.
The Skip and Josh podcast is on now.
Hello.
Skippy,
Hey,
how's it going?
it's going good.
So I feel like every episode we try to explain what this show is.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes I worry that if there's new listeners, they're going to wonder what this is all about. So,
But even the existing listeners, I think, don't understand this show.
well, it's hard to understand something that even the hosts barely can understand.
I agree. So, but let me just try to explain this show a little bit.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Maybe it'll help me understand it.
We've explained it many times, and you and I think, understand it, but just so the listeners are on the same page, because God forbid we should have them, not understanding anything. So this is not your typical show. This is not like turning on TSN or Sportsnet or some sports radio show where you're going to hear analysis and X's and O's and stats about last night's game or next week's game or tomorrow's game or whatever. This isn't that. This is just a conversation between you and I. So if we weren't recording this and no one was listening to it, and I saw something interesting that happened this past week, and I want to tell you about it, I'm going to tell you about it. That's what this show is. It might have to do with sports. It might not have to do with sports. Like, for example, I don't know if you're aware that yesterday was a crazy windy day in Toronto, like not normal.
Oh, no, we had the same thing here in Montreal.
Trees fell down, power lines fell down. There are streets that are closed even still today.
I was scared last night that one of the trees in my backyard was going to, fall.
Yeah, so anyway, that's an example of something that we might talk about on this show.
Well, we might, yeah.
We just did.
Now, I like what you just said, but I have a problem.
Okay.
Now, if people follow us on social media, they might know that we got together a couple times this week in person.
Yeah.
You were in Montreal for work, and actually we went out for dinner twice, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, what happened was when we were driving to the first restaurant on Sunday night, you said to me, you said to me something like, I'm watching a new show. And then I was like, well, what is it? And then you're like, I can't tell you.
No, I'll tell you during this show now.
So I feel that while this podcast has been a great way for us to make sure we connect on a weekly basis or even more to talk about all the stuff we love, but I was like, we couldn't have a proper conversation when we were in person.
No, we can't.
I thought it was so weird. I was like, what do you mean we can't talk about it? So now I need to know what show you're watching.
TV?
Okay, well, it's a new show. It's called Alex Inc. Have you heard of it?
Not really. It rings a bell, but...
So it's with Zach Braff, who I actually like.
Oh, he's running a podcast.
Exactly. That's why I like the show, because he quit his full-time job and he started his own podcast.
So it's a show
kind of
about
like us, except we didn't quit our jobs.
Yeah. Is it good?
It's not bad, actually.
I saw the commercials for it, and I said, you know what? I might give that show a try just because of what it was about.
Yeah.
Right? But actually, Zach Braff is very, very clever and funny.
He is.
Yeah.
Also, I like how he dresses, at least on the show. I don't know how he dresses in real life.
Okay. Cool. So, also to explain how the show works, you usually have a list of things you want to talk about. I usually have a list of things I want to talk about, and that's what we talk about. But usually I don't know what you want to talk about, and you don't know what I want to talk about. Although usually we can guess. I mean, with what's going on in the NHL playoffs and NBA playoffs, I mean, I think those are kind of a little bit of obvious choices. So, Do you want to start?
Sure.
College basketball.
So I know that it's not college basketball season, but...
Oh, we're leading with college basketball.
Yes, for a couple of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One is the already stacked Duke team for next season, which includes a Canadian player, by the way, RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
Just got even more stacked a couple of days ago because this kid who was supposed to join the team in 2019 has somehow graduated from high school a year early. I don't know how that works.
What's his name?
Joey Baker.
Oh.
And he's going to be coming to Duke a year earlier than expected, which I don't understand how you can just decide to graduate from high school a year earlier.
Well, you think these guys go to real school? They don't even go to college. They barely go to high school.
Okay, but it says here he's reclassifying to 2018 and will enroll at Duke in the fall. He wasn't supposed to enroll at Duke until the fall of 2019. Mm-hmm. So it says here he will graduate high school a year early and enter college sooner than expected. I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't have the option of graduating or finishing a year early. I don't understand how it works.
Me too. I don't understand. I can't understand it at all, to be honest.
And then even if you somehow did finish school a year earlier, let's say you're a genius and you, finish school a year early, don't you have to be a minimum age to go to university?
No, I don't think so.
You don't?
Because you hear about these child prodigies that go to university at like 13.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
or at least they have TV shows about them. Sometimes,
Anyhow, so now the team's even more stacked.
Yeah, I know, but that they were stacked last year, and what does it matter?
No, I know, but by the way, all 5 starters from last year are gone. I don't know if you heard.
No, of course they are. We're gonna have all new guys, and we're gonna have all new rookies, and it's the same old one and done situation.
Exactly.
I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either because they're the preseason favorite to win it all,
Ugh.
and they won't.
No, that's it. They won't. But the good news is I sent you something this week because RJ Barrett is on the team. Duke's doing a little Canadian tour. So they're supposed to play games in Toronto and supposedly in Montreal, which would be pretty amazing if we get to go see them.
It would be amazing. And now let us use our show as a tool because what's the point of having a show? It's to get free stuff.
Okay, a box of that.
Yeah. So we're going to use this show as a tool. I know that one of the listeners out there, Derek, who works at McGill University, Duke will be playing against McGill. So we need media credentials to cover that game at McGill. We also need media credentials to cover the game at Ryerson. So if anyone from Ryerson is listening, please forward us our media credentials. We need to interview RJ Barrett and Coach K for our show. It's for a sports show. So we have a legitimate purpose. And Derek, can you please work on getting us passes to the game at McGill? Thank you.
I have nothing more to say about that.
No, that's all. I mean, listen, what's the point of having a show if we don't get free stuff?
It's perfect. Do you want to go to the next topic?
Yeah, you can pick the next one.
The National Hockey League.
Wow, it's NHL playoffs. Are you watching?
Yes, I am watching.
The series are going like more or less as planned, although it's very, very tight, If Boston could have held on last night, that series would be 2-2. Now Tampa's up 3-1. It's a 3-1, but it's a lot closer than it seems. You know what I mean? Winnipeg, Nashville, to me, is destined to go 7.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas is going to win, just as we said.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh, Washington, flip a coin, right?
Yeah, if Pittsburgh, Washington goes to Game 7, Pittsburgh's winning.
I mean, that's the common logic, right? History tells us that's what's going to happen. But the big thing I wanted to talk about is, did you see Brad Marchand licked Ryan Callahan last night?
I did, and it pissed me off so much.
Callahan had the best quote when they interviewed him after the game.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing that he said even before he said it.
He was like, I don't know how someone could be allowed to do that. It's the same as spitting in someone's face.
Yeah, it is.
And actually, when you put it that way, I was like, well, he's right. Now, what I did read this morning, and it's been all over the news, is that, last night when this happened, everyone was probably screaming at their TV, and I certainly saw it on Twitter, all the anger. Like, why didn't the refs call a penalty? Well, it's because there's no penalty for licking.
Yes, but you can call unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah, they can call unsportsmanlike conduct.
For anything.
But they can. And I think if it happens again, they will, because supposedly this morning, Brad Marchand's been, I call him Marchand, but
so do I.
I know, because we're Canadian, but like, he says Marchand.
No, it's because we're from Montreal.
Yeah. So apparently they've warned him, the NHL's warned him not to do it again. So to me, it's like a kind of and one of the broadcasters on the broadcast last night brought it up. It's like a Sean Avery situation when he was screening Martin Brodeur.
Mm-hmm.
You remember this? Waving
Yes,
his
of
stick at his
course.
face. And they're like, well, he's not making contact with him. He's not in the crease. Like, what are you going to do about it, right? But then the NHL basically said, don't do that again. It's unsportsmanlike conduct. And that's what it will be, right? So I can't wait.
What Marchand did is worse than what Avery did.
Oh, it's much worse. But it's still, yeah, it's much worse. But what I'm saying is, like, because of all the kind of uproar about it, the next time the refs will call a penalty, right?
I hope they do. I hope he costs them the series.
Well, I mean, they're down 3-1. He's such a great player. It's you know, you can play on the edge. Like, everyone's like, oh, Marchand, he plays on the edge. He plays with grit, with sandpaper. You know, you can play on the edge and you can be an instigator. And he's a great player. He's an incredibly talented player. But like, licking someone's face, that's beyond going over the edge. That's insanity, right? That's insanity.
You know, I don't know how Callahan was able to restrain himself and not punch Marchand in the head, because I would have done that.
It's nuts. It's honestly, it's really like, it's mental illness. Marchand has something wrong with him, honestly.
He probably does.
Do you have anything to say about the other series? Like, Winnipeg, Nashville is just unbelievable.
I'm stunned at the number of goals scored in the playoffs in general, but that series in particular, it's like no lead is safe, and it's certainly like, you know, it seems like just 2-3 years ago, not even, every game in the playoffs was 2-1, no matter who was playing.
Yeah, now they're 5-4.
Or 7-6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I told you at the beginning of when we did our playoff predictions, and I even told you last year, I'm not a fan of Picarini because he's wildly inconsistent, and he's proving me right because he looked horrible in the games that they lost. I mean, horrible to the point where I think Nashville was considering taking him out, and he came back with his best game of the playoffs last game, right? So
yeah, and no one even like, what's his name, Hellebuck, he's had bad games too.
Absolutely.
So no one can have like a great string of like 16 consecutive games where they're on the top of their game, like Patrick Waugh used to have, or Martin Brodeur used to have. You know, that doesn't happen anymore.
Have you seen at all any of the Vegas games? I saw some highlight. It's too late for me to stay up, to be honest. I watched the highlights.
I'm only able to watch the first period of the Vegas games because they're just on too late.
They really killed them last night. I saw the highlights. It's not even close.
Actually, I stayed up until it was 4-0, so I watched more than I usually do.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like it was close. But then when I woke up this morning, San Jose made it close in the third.
Vegas is like, every time Vegas wins a game, I just hear your voice in my head saying like to the effect of like, all the other 29 GMs in the league are idiots.
30 actually, but yes.
And not that they're idiots. And there could be the guys that would replace them would also be idiots. It's like, no one knows who's good. They think they know. They think they're all, like you say, the genius, the GMs and the scouts, they all think they're like geniuses. Oh, this guy's better than this guy.
I love these people. You can't ask them questions. They're so mentally gifted that we mustn't disturb the delicate genius.
That guy's better than this guy. And you heard a lot about this year because they had the draft lottery and they're talking about who's going to get picked, second, third, whatever.
Yeah.
You think anybody knows? You think anybody really knows?
No, I don't.
Honestly.
I really don't, because for example, I was looking back at the year that Galchenyuk was drafted. He was picked third overall.
Yeah.
In the top 10 picks that year, I think Galchenyuk is the best player of the top 10.
Yeah.
The only player better than him
is Philip Forsberg.
Right, who was, I think, picked 11th.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that means 10 general managers made mistakes.
Right.
And the funny thing is, he wasn't even picked by Nashville. I think he was picked by Washington, and they traded him. I don't know what Washington.
It was
got
like a
for
draft.
him.
It was an immediate trade, though. Like, it was a draft day trade. I think like it happened almost immediately.
Well, I hope Washington got something good for him.
But yeah, I mean, like, they don't know.
It's a crapshoot.
And you see this guy who scored for Vegas last night, Tuch.
Is that how to pronounce his name?
I think so. No.
Well, is it Tuch?
Yeah, maybe it's Tuch. Maybe it's Tuch. You're right. It's Tuch. Alex Tuch. We're gonna call him Tuch.
Okay.
I can't pronounce names.
No, I know.
Right. So it doesn't matter what I say. The opposite's gonna be correct.
Pronounce this name. Smith.
I don't want to say it.
Okay.
So, he's like 6'4", he's huge. He's a huge power forward. He scored a beautiful goal last night on like roofed it over the goalie's head. And like, they're talking about how, Minnesota left him exposed in the expansion draft. But like, every team left guys exposed in the expansion draft. Their whole team are guys that are exposed in the expansion draft. Mm-hmm. Their entire roster, So like, why even bring that up? Everybody knows they came from other teams. They didn't exist last year, right?
Right.
Oh, it's just weird. The comments that you hear sometimes when you watch the broadcast, they're talking about how, Minnesota should be embarrassed. They let him go. Of course they should. The whole league should be embarrassed.
Well, to be fair to the 30 other GMs who are all idiots,
yeah,
the rules this year were very in favor of Vegas.
Yeah,
because first of all, they weren't picking against another team, but also teams were not allowed to protect that many players.
Yeah, yeah.
You had to leave, like every team was leaving good players unprotected.
Yeah. That's true. That's how they got a guy like Jonathan Marchessault, who's like has a goal scoring, like when you look at his career stats, he scored goals in the NHL, like
I'd love to have that guy on my team.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? I don't even understand how Florida left him unprotected in the first place.
You mentioned the draft lottery about a minute ago.
Yeah.
It was on my list of things I wanted to talk about. Did you watch live the draft lottery?
No, I can't waste my time with that.
Well, you're smart because I did and I want to tell you, this is what bugs me.
You're kidding me? Boy, are you bugging me, man? I'm gonna nail. Ooh, I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
So I was watching the draft lottery live only because this was during that baby gender reveal, and we had some time to kill. And so they have, they bring out these 15 big cardboard, squares with each team's logo, and Bill Daly is flipping one card at a time.
Right.
This team's going to pick 15th and this team's going to pick 14th and so on and so forth. Anyway, so he's done, I think, 12 of the 15 cards. So there's only the top 3 teams left. So it's going to be Buffalo, Carolina, and Montreal. You just don't know what order it's going to be. And they were doing this before the hockey game, which I think was it might have been a 7:00 start that night. I don't know. So then they go to commercial, they come back, and they're like, okay, we're expecting to see the top 3. And that's when they say, to find out who the top 3 are, tune in during the second intermission of tonight's game. Are you kidding me? I sat here this whole time, and you're not even going to tell me the top 3 until the second intermission of the game?
That's criminal.
It is criminal.
That's criminal. Because they advertised it all week. Tune in at 5:00 to see or 6:00 to see the draft lottery.
Yeah.
And then they decide they're not showing it.
With 3 teams left, they decide, well, I'm sure they decided before, but they didn't tell us. With 3 teams left, that's when they say, we'll reveal the other 3 during the second intermission of tonight's game.
Good stuff. Thank you, NHL. You're awesome.
Anyway.
So, switching gears away from hockey, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
The National Basketball Association.
Have you watched any NBA playoffs?
I actually have, believe it or not.
I find the NBA playoffs very compelling this year.
So, to be clear, I've only watched Raptors games.
I feel bad for you.
And I'm not a Raptors fan.
I know you're not.
So I don't really care what happens.
But when you live in a city that has this team playing, like you're in Toronto and the Raptors are playing, it's very hard not to get wrapped up into it.
Wrapped up in the Raptors.
And not only that, I feel it from Montreal because they're the only Canadian team.
Mm-hmm.
Every single game is televised on either Sportsnet or TSN. Every single game.
Right.
So that's the team that we get to see. And look, I have a beef with the Raptors right now. I'm telling you. They're banned. They are banned. I am never, ever, ever going to cheer for them again. I am never getting sucked into being like even cheering for the Raptors. I don't like LeBron James. I want the Raptors to win. But honestly, I'm done with them. They've sucked me in for the last time.
Well, they're choking dogs, and I'll tell you why. Because
they're the biggest choking dogs I've ever seen.
They were playing the Cavs, who they've played many, many times, except the difference is they had home court advantage this time around. And the Cavs had to play an extra game in their previous series 2 days before. They were tired, and they come to Toronto, and Toronto's leading the entire game, game 1, and they blew it. They choked in the fourth quarter. Not only that, like with 5 seconds left, I don't know if you saw the very end of regulation time. With 5 seconds left, the Raptors, I think, had 4 shots. Yeah. And all that had to happen was one of them had to go in and they win that game.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment, that 5-second stretch, where they lost not just that game, they lost the series.
I agree. But thing is, they went like something like 2 for 14 in the last 5 minutes of the game or whatever. Like they couldn't hit a shot. If they hit one shot in the last 5 minutes of the game, they probably win the game. But I'm gonna take it one step further.
They had to win game 1. They had.
I'll tell you where they lost. I'll tell you where they lost the series. They lost the series in game 2 when they didn't show up because they blew game 1, and a resilient team will come out with a singular focus, knowing exactly what they have to do, and they got owned in game 2. And everybody could talk about like LeBron James got 45 points or whatever. It doesn't matter. The Cavs had like 5 guys in double figures. Kevin Love had 31 points. Right? That can't happen. Right? That just can't happen.
It was really just the third quarter that did them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
They looked asleep in the third quarter. And some people are using the excuse that the game started at 6 instead of 7. The crowd was not into it. The crowd was not into it at all, by the way.
It started at 6 for both teams.
No, I know. I'm not using that excuse.
Yeah.
But they couldn't really get the home crowd behind them. First of all, they were all late showing up to begin with.
Yeah.
And then when they were there, they seemed like they were just sort of there, but not actually there. If that makes any sense.
I'm going to take a shot at Toronto, and you could defend them since you're one of them now, but isn't that Toronto fans in general?
They do come late to everything, yes.
But they're very sleepy. When you watch the Leafs games, it's a regular season Leafs game. It's very sleepy, like honestly.
Yeah, they're a little bit more
corporate. And I don't think the Raptor fans are like that, so I was surprised. So
the Raptor fans and Leaf fans are actually quite different. The Raptor fans are younger and they're usually more boisterous.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know who showed up to that game because they were very quiet.
The interesting thing about that game is that, look, I know why the NBA chose to put one game at 6. They had 2 games. They're both East Coast games. The Celtics were on after. They wanted to pivot them both in. So once the game started at 6, the other started at 8:30. But they chose to have LeBron's game at 6, which LeBron doesn't play at 6, basically.
Well, I mean, because no one's watching the Raptors in the States.
Yeah, all the ratings come from Canada, which is half the rating. Doesn't count for them. Yeah.
Exactly. Same thing when the Jays are in the playoffs. They always get the worst time slot.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know why people in Toronto don't understand this. Like, it's very clear. Anytime the Blue Jays are playing in a playoff game or the Raptors are playing in a playoff game, the NBA and Major League Baseball are going to give that game the worst possible time slot.
It's even more so in baseball because baseball... NBA is a little bit more of a national type of sport, and I find baseball is much more regional, focused on your city. Mm-hmm. So a typical baseball game, I mean, although in the playoffs it tends to be, everybody's watching, but I mean, it's the home city's market that makes up such a huge portion of the viewership, right? So like, and like I just said, that home portion of the viewership counts for 0 in the ratings when the U.S. networks are they don't take into account that there's 5 million people or whatever it is watching on TSN or whatever it is.
I don't even think it's that high, but yes.
No, but whatever the number is, it's 0 for the American broadcasters, right?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, did you see the yelling match between Drake and Kendrick Perkins?
It was great. First of all, look, do you like Drake? Do you care about him? Or
I don't really care.
No, I mean, I don't care about his music. I don't like it. I don't hate it. It's there. It's on the radio. I hear it. It's fine. But first of all, he shouldn't be arguing with any of the players in the first place. Drake. He has no business doing that. He has, if he's sitting in the front row, sit in the front row, cheer for your team. You don't need to get involved with another player. Second of all, if you choose to get involved with another player, if you're going to make that step and say, I'm going to be an idiot and I'm going to get into the face of one of the other teams. Kendrick Perkins? The guy, he's a zombie. No one even knows he's on their team. This guy, when I found out Kendrick Perkins was on the Cavs, I was like, this guy's still in the league? I didn't even know I thought he retired 3 years ago. If you want to start a beef with someone, get in J.R. Smith's face, talk about his tattoos, like someone, anyone, You know, Kendrick Perkins?
Also pick on someone that's not so big.
Well, I mean, they're all bigger than him. Even the smallest player on the team is
That's
the
true.
size of Drake, right?
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, I found that a little bit astonishing. So look, well, the Cavs and Raptors are playing today, I believe, right? The next game
tonight.
So I wanted to watch the series because I really want to root against the Cavs, but now I have no one to root for. So I don't even know if I'm going to watch that. Now, the other series that's sort of divided in my household is the Celtics and the Sixers.
I'm excited to hear what goes on in your house.
Well, we missed game 1 because
Okay.
we were at WWE Raw.
Okay.
In case there's any wrestling fans out there, let you know that I took my son and his 3 friends to the Bell Center to see WWE Raw on Monday
In
night.
my opinion, not a good reason to miss a playoff basketball game, but just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, no, Raw comes to Montreal like once every 5 years, so we had to take advantage.
Okay.
Game 2 was interesting because Matthew is already the game started at 8:30. He came downstairs. He's wearing his Ben Simmons jersey and a Joel Embiid t-shirt underneath the Ben Simmons jersey. He's all hyped up for the Sixers, ready to roll. And I had to respond. So
I hope you
I
did.
went downstairs. I looked through my old boxes of stuff and I pulled out. I took a picture of myself. I'll put it up on the website. I posted it on Twitter, I'm pretty sure. I broke out my old vintage Larry Bird baseball cap.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have a t-shirt or a jersey?
I did put on this ratty Celtics tank top that I have,
Yeah.
but it's 30 years old and basically I only sleep in it, so I didn't really feel comfortable wearing it.
So you didn't come, he destroyed you in the
won.
swag area.
Yeah, maybe. But the Celtics beat him on the court, which is what
Okay.
counts. And the Celtics are doing it with mirrors, smoke and mirrors, honestly.
No, they're doing it with their coach.
With their coach, yeah. But you listen to it, and I don't want to take credit for this kind of thought process because Tony Kornheiser's said it many times in the last few weeks. The Celtic, when you watch most NBA teams, there are just a bunch of individuals. And
Yes.
And the Celtics actually allow themselves to be coached, right?
It's because they don't have any stars because all their
Right.
stars are injured.
They all buy in, and when you have 5 guys on the court all buying into the same plan, you're going to beat the team that has 3 guys buying into the same plan or 5 guys sort of buying into the same plan, And I'm not saying that the Sixers are a bunch of guys not listening to their coach. I think they are listening to their coach, but Celtics just play as one. That's all.
They're a young team, and it's almost like they're a college team because they're still very young. They're not that far removed from playing college basketball. Their coach is not that far removed from coaching college basketball.
It's true, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why they all buy in. It might be different if Kyrie Irving was healthy or if Gordon Hayward was healthy. Who knows?
Look, Terry Rozier's been playing point and he's having a fantastic series for the Celtics. So it's hard to say oh my God, they don't even miss Kyrie. Terry Rozier's playing great. But imagine if Kyrie is there in those situations where everything breaks down, because the Celtics are so great at moving the ball, playing unselfishly, and getting the best shot. But you don't get that every possession. Sometimes the other team plays good defense or you make bad plays. So when everything breaks down and there's nothing there, Kyrie Irving can just magically create a shot for himself, right? And they go in because he's that's how good he is, right? And they don't have that. So they have to play how they are. And I love him and I know you love him too. Jason Tatum's amazing. Right? So that's the NBA. We're not going to talk about the West. I've watched a little bit of the West, a bit of the West, but I know Utah won one game, but Houston's just so much better than them. And Golden State lost last night, but I just can't see the Pelicans keeping up in the rest of the series.
Yeah, listen, the Warriors and the Rockets will probably win their series in 5 games, and then they'll play each other.
Yeah, and when the Warriors play the Rockets, that will be a very, very interesting series because that's the 2 best teams in the league, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'd love to see what happens if the Celtics play Cleveland, but from what I've seen from Cleveland, they're going to go to the finals. Because everyone was saying it's LeBron and a bunch of nobodies. I said it here. It's LeBron and 4 guys from the YMCA, right? But every game, one of those guys from the YMCA has been stepping up. Last game, it was Kevin Love. The other game, it was Tristan Thompson, who everybody thought was left for dead, right? He was a disappearing act all season. All of a sudden, he showed up in the biggest game against the Pacers. And J.R. Smith will hit his shots every now and then. So they've had guys that have been stepping up when they need them. You know,
I
and
don't
LeBron
think you
is so
should-
good. So
I don't think you should count out the Celtics because no one expected them to get this far.
yeah,
And I would like to see the Celtics play the Cavaliers. Yes, the Cavaliers have LeBron, but the Celtics, as you've just said about a minute
team.
ago,
they're a team.
they're a full team. And I think I like that matchup, actually, if I'm a
Yeah.
Celtics fan.
I love
Plus, the
it. I can't-
Celtics will have home court.
They will, yeah, for sure they will, yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a stat out there, when the Celtics win the first 2 games of a series, they always win the series.
I don't like those stats because those stats go back to like 1951.
That's true, and the team's completely different. But it is quite remarkable.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we'll see tonight. It's going to certainly be a huge, wild crowd in Philadelphia, like the Philly fans tend to be, right? And you're the one that always says you haven't lost until you lose at home. So obviously, Game 3 is pivotal.
The National Football League.
Speaking of Philadelphia, can I switch
Yeah.
gears?
Yeah, please.
Did you watch any of the NFL draft?
I didn't watch, and just because I didn't have time, I followed it a little bit, but I didn't have it on the TV all the time. I was following what was going on. But what I mean, I don't want to criticize the teams for picking, and I don't want to applaud teams for picking certain guys because, like I just said about the NHL draft, no one knows anything.
Oh no,
Right?
I'm not bringing this up because I want to talk about who was picked. I have no
Oh, sure.
clue.
Oh, okay.
I have no clue if any of these guys are good or not. It's a total crapshoot.
Yeah.
The reason I brought it up is because, so the draft, just to set the scene here, the draft was in Dallas.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so for one of the Eagles picks, I don't know if it was their first pick, but one of the Eagles picks, they sent David Akers to announce
know.
the pick.
I saw that. Yeah.
So anyone out there who has not seen this clip of David Akers
It's great.
announcing the pick, it's phenomenal. He totally rips all the Cowboys fans. It's great.
It's great. And as an Eagles fan, it was great to see, honestly.
So that's all I wanted to mention about the draft. I could care less about the players that were chosen.
Well, look, my son right away was like, Cleveland's so stupid. Why did they do that? They should have picked like this. They should have picked that because who knows? Cleveland had the first pick. They said, this is the guy we like. They picked him. That's simple as that. You know?
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. And I hope Baker Mayfield goes on to have a great career. I liked him in college. I think what happened in the NFL draft, did you follow the lead up in the last few weeks?
I did, yeah.
They're when you read these reports, like, oh, Baker Mayfield has a bad attitude. Who says he has a bad attitude? He grabbed his crotch once in a game. He has a bad attitude.
He did a couple other things.
You know? And Josh Rosen doesn't have the will to play because his family's rich. I've never heard anything so stupid in my life. You know? When these quarterbacks get to the NFL and they do like they're like 10-year veterans, they're stars. And you're like, oh, this guy's so great. He does Make-A-Wish. This guy's so great. He donated all this money for a mission to Africa. This guy is so great because he donates all his time to the Boys and Girls Club of the inner cities. That's what Josh Rosen wants to do now, right? He in his head, he's like, I want to be more than a quarterback. What's wrong with that? You know, like I just found like the reasons why they were
they come
trying
up
to
with
pick at
all-
some of these guys is just ridiculous.
They'll come up with whatever excuse to say, oh, this is why we've picked this guy, or this is why we haven't picked that guy, or whatever.
Yeah. You don't like, you say he can't, maybe you don't like the way he throws. Maybe you don't like his release. Maybe you don't think he's fast enough, you know? But then leading to that is the guy who is the fastest and the guy who has the strongest arm was the last quarterback picked in the first round. That's Lamar Jackson of Louisville. So the whole thing is nonsense.
Yeah. It is.
All right. What else do you got? My list is done.
I have a couple other things.
I have one important thing that I want to talk about in the close, but
Okay. Did you watch the CFL draft?
I thought it's just a conference call.
No, it's more than that now.
I saw that they were advertising the CFL draft, and I was like, Matthew was there with me, and I was like, how could they televise that? I thought it's just a conference call.
It's more than that. They don't gather all the players and they don't gather all the teams, but it's more than just a conference call.
Okay, no, I didn't watch it. Did you?
Okay. No.
No. Well, I mean, I know you have long-standing ties to the CFL. I don't know if you feel good or bad about the league, but you know,
I don't really care.
right? No, I didn't watch it. No, definitely not.
Major League Baseball.
So we haven't talked about baseball.
Well, the problem is I haven't watched any baseball.
Okay, well, I've watched a little bit.
Okay.
So a couple of things I want to mention about baseball. First of all, the season starts too early.
Yes. Well, we know that.
And you saw all the rainouts and the snowouts and whatever. And, you know, you may recall what I said a few weeks ago, how it's all about global warming and climate change.
Yes.
And you laughed at me at the time.
I didn't laugh. I laughed because I've never heard you talk about that in my life.
But someone else said the exact same thing as me a few days ago on another radio show, where it's true that the summer is starting later and later every year, and it goes later and later. For example, in April used to be nice when I was like a 10-year-old. April's now freezing cold.
Yeah.
At the same time, October used to be freezing cold when I was a 10-year-old. Now October's actually nice.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm right with you on that.
So here's Major League Baseball's solution. I know they don't want to shrink the number of games because every fewer game they have, it's less money for them. It's less money for the players. So they're not going to cut down the schedule from, 162 games? They're not going to cut it down.
Right.
I get that. But what they could do is they could have a doubleheader every single Saturday of the schedule. Every Saturday, there should be a doubleheader. And don't tell me
They don't want to do that either because they lose money.
No, but there's a way that they won't lose money. Let me get to that in a sec. Don't tell me that it's too hard for the players to play 2 games because it's baseball and you're not doing anything 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So you can certainly play 2 games a day. And what you can do is you have a day-night doubleheader where you have a day game at 1 o'clock, you get rid of all the fans, then you have a 7 o'clock game, and you have new fans come in. It's that simple.
They should do that. This is actually a very good solution. You see...
And then you could start the season like you could start it a week or maybe even 2 weeks later.
This is why I like having these conversations with you. Because a lot of times I complain about stuff. And whatever, I complain about stuff. A lot of times you complain about stuff. But you often bring solutions. You have ideas about how to fix things.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's very genius. Why not have a doubleheader? They'd condense the season without losing any money.
I mean, think about it. When you're on the during the season, most teams you play the same team every Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So you're playing a 3-game series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you're there, you're in that city. Like if I don't know, if Tampa Bay is visiting Kansas City, they're in Kansas City all weekend long. Why not have 2 games on the Saturday?
Yeah, why not? Makes too much sense.
I mean, they're there already. It's not like they have to make a special trip.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a weekday and people are at work.
Petition Major League Baseball to change that. They won't.
Anyway, the other things I wanted to mention about baseball, you haven't been following at all, but you may recall that last year you had predicted that the Rookie of the Year was going to be Ozzie Albies.
Yeah, he's doing well, isn't he?
Well, last year he was not doing well at all.
But this year.
He was certainly not Rookie of the Year. But this year he is doing well, and I'd like to just ramble off his stats to you.
Okay, please.
He's had 135 at-bats, 38 hits, 10 homers, 24 ribbies. He scored 32 runs. He even has 3 stolen bases. He's hitting .281. His OPS is .929. So you were just a year too early on Ozzie Albies.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Albert Pujols, who got his 3,000th hit last night.
Except, do you know how old he really is?
No one knows. Not even his mother.
So one last baseball note.
Mm-hmm.
I, as you know, like to talk about Pablo Sandoval.
Yeah, but he's useless. Why do you want to talk about him? He doesn't even play.
Because I'll tell you why I want to talk about him. Because a week ago, he came in and pitched a perfect inning. One of the pitches he threw was 69 miles an hour.
Oh my God. You figure with all that body weight, he'd be able to get some power on his pitches.
Maybe they found a new position for him.
I don't think so.
Just saying.
So, you still like Pablo Sandoval? What team is he on anyways?
He's on San Francisco again.
Oh, he's back on the Giants. Okay.
He was back on the Giants at the end of last year, actually.
Okay. Is he... I mean, look. He's not an impact player anymore. Barely was, you know.
No. No, I just wanted to mention that he pitched a perfect inning. That's all.
Yeah. He is responsible for winning one of those World Series for the Giants.
That's
I forget
right.
which one, but there's one where he was completely unstoppable. He hit everything that moved. He hit everything out of the park. But since he signed the big contract with the Red Sox, he's gone downhill.
By the way, you recall when he was on the Red Sox, he had that really bad year, and then he worked out during the off season, and he came to training camp like in great shape and everything. I mentioned it on one of our shows.
You know how I feel about that.
I know. You don't care.
He came to training camp in great shape. That's nonsense. That's such lies.
Well, whatever off season work he did when he was on the Red Sox, it looks like it all went to waste because now I'm seeing a picture of him, on the Giants.
Yeah.
Looks like he gained all that weight back.
He went on he started a vegan diet and then he got off of it and he's back on his pizza and beer diet.
Well, I don't know what he's eating, but it looks like he gained all the weight back.
Okay.
So, but he pitched a perfect inning, so that's all that matters.
Show close.
I'm ready for the show close.
So am I. I'm excited.
Okay. I just want to tell you one thing before I do the show close.
Okay.
You know what today is?
It's Cinco de Mayo, and it's also the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, you got it. So,
and by the way, yesterday was May the 4th be with you.
Yeah. Oh, you know about that. I thought you're not a Star Wars guy.
I hate Star Wars.
So, as you know, I do like the Kentucky Derby. I couldn't tell you any of the horses that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue. I don't follow horse racing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But at 5 o'clock, I will definitely be watching the race. Because you know why I like it? I like the announcers.
You like the 2-hour pregame show?
I just like the way they announce the race. It's very, very exciting. It's some drama there, So it's a little bit of drama, and I like how the announcers make this 2-minute race very, very exciting.
Okay.
That's how I got into it. So before we sign off, I want to remind everybody that to make sure you never miss an episode of the Skip and Josh podcast, you need to subscribe, and you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or pretty much the podcast app of your choice. I like to plug an app. If you're on an iPhone, I like to plug an app called Overcast. If you listen by Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a review. Send us an email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, if you want to tell us you love us, hate us, things you'd like us to talk about. Derek, that's the email address you can use to forward us our media credentials. Via Twitter @skipandjosh, or you can like and follow our Facebook page. And as always, skipandjosh.com has all the links to everything I just said.
Love it. That's great.
All right. I'll talk to you next time.
Have a great week.
You too.
The Skip and Josh podcast is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.